Let's finally settle the age-old debate of which language is better, Python or R. I'm Samanvay, a data scientist living in Sydney, Australia. When you're starting out in your data science journey, you might be wondering why you keep seeing R versus Python comparisons online. Why is it that these two different languages often compete for attention in the data science space? So let's talk a little bit about that. And before we get too into the comparison, let me start off by talking a little bit about my own experience in my own data science journey. So I started off in data science in 2017. The first language that I touched was R. So my manager at the time gave me a little toy task just to get me started. So he suggested looking at a stream of Twitter data and doing a topical analysis on it. So topical analysis is pretty much when you've got a range of sentences and you're trying to figure out which are the common topics discussed between the sentence. So you could treat it as like a clustering task almost. That can be very useful if you're a company and a lot of users are complaining about your service on Twitter, and you might be curious to learn more about what are the common sources of these complaints. So I was using a technique called LDA. It was a fairly straightforward task and it wasn't too difficult to do it in R. So in my first job, I did quite a bit of data engineering and I was mostly working with people that were developer or software engineer. And naturally the tool that we used was Python. So Python in summary is a lot more popular in the developer landscape and definitely more popular than R recently. My initial thought with Python was that it had a lot more engineering capabilities, so it was a very general purpose language that you could use to make web apps, websites, data wrangling tool, data engineering tools, you name it. You could do anything with it. And R was definitely not as flexible as Python, and naturally Python has become more popular in the data science landscape. Also, a lot of these big companies like Google or Facebook are releasing lots of open source packages in Python. And a lot of the researchers are now moving away from R to Python. So if we take a look back as to what R was designed for, it was mainly designed by mathematicians and researchers for use by mathematicians and researchers. So naturally, it's more geared towards statistical analysis and data visualization. But if you try to do anything that requires scaling, let's say you're trying to build a machine learning application that you want to then serve on a website to thousands or millions of users, then R is not so good. And this is something that I've definitely seen from experience where we did a proof of concept in R, but then if we wanted to ship it in a Docker container or in like a production environment, we'd often have to convert the R code to Python. So it's a lot easier to use Python from the get-go so that they can easily convert that to scalable code. I've also found that the syntax in R is very interesting. It's quite a lot different to Python. So if you're just starting out, I'd recommend using Python because in my opinion, that's a lot easier to get started with. What you learn in Python from a programming perspective, it's a lot easier to translate that to other languages. Should it be Scala or Java, a lot of the principles that you learn in Python is very similar. But I do have to say that learning to code well in Python is probably a little bit harder than in R, because in Python, if you're trying to write production code, there definitely needs to be a very high degree of code quality, and that can take quite a while to learn. But just to get started, Python is definitely a lot easier and a lot more user-friendly. Both of the languages serve a different purpose. R is mainly for data analysis and statistical analysis, whereas Python is for when you want to write general purpose applications. It could be data wrangling application or data engineering application or even ML application that you intend to then ship to production. I don't think R was ever designed as a language to be used for production level code or production level application. It was just there for use by academics and researchers. When I first started in data science around 5 years ago, and for a significant period of time before that, R was a very popular language amongst data scientists. And at the time, I remember thinking that I definitely should spend more time learning R. But luckily, the way my career has panned out, I had to use more Python, and I've used Scala here and there and Spark here and there, but R is not something I've had to touch too much. Once you've learned Python or R, it's definitely easy to switch between the two. So pick the language that is suitable for the use case at hand. In data science, definitely Python is the most useful language from the trends that we see in the industry. But in terms of learning new programming language, there's no such thing as superior or inferior. There's languages for different use cases, and you use the tool that is most relevant for that use case. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.